Hey there. Hello. How do you do? My name is Harry Wetzel. Thanks for coming. It's the 80s, darling. Yes. It is December 1982. I am in New York for a little over a month now, and I'm working in the booze store for about 3 weeks. And as I said, the grind is beginning to tell on me. When you're in New York for a while, and not even very long, you become lonely. You realize that while you have your roommates, you've got a very small core group of friends, of people that can help keep you sane. But most of your friends, most of your people, most of the things you love are 600 miles away. And your eyes begin to be desperate for anything that's familiar. Any face, especially, that's familiar. Sure, there are my Detroiter friends. But you're still just looking for something that's familiar. And one day, in the booze store, something familiar came in. One of my old friends from Michigan walks right in the front door of the fancy booze store. And I recognized him right away. I was so excited to see him. And then he brought in his wife and their new baby. Apparently they have a new baby. How exciting. What's her name and the baby? And I'm like, oh, what's her name? And I'm like, ooh, what's his name? And they're coming in the store, and they're approaching, and small panic attack in my brain as my empty skull flips through the Rolodex, trying to find out what is his name, and it's running out of time because they come right up to us, and they're right there in front of me. And I'm so happy to see him, but I don't remember his name, so I just chirp out with a lot of happiness. I say, hey there! And he returns my greeting with the same amount of enthusiasm and volume. He says, hey there! And it crashes into my skull how I recognize him. I didn't go to school with him. This is Keith Carradine. Hollywood royalty. Of course I recognized him. He's a movie star. So as soon as I realize that it's a movie star, I draw back in horror. Oh! And he says, no. Hey there! And I'm like, oh. Hey there. Because it turns out he was just as nice and normal as you would expect. Meanwhile, what's her name and the baby vanished to browse, and Keith Carradine says, I'd like to order a case of mixed wine and some liquor. And I'm like, absolutely. So Keith Carradine and I, Carradine. I always grew up thinking it was Carradine. I think it's Carradine, actually, yeah. Anyhow, so Keith Carradine and I make out his wine order. Oh, it was lovely. I made a few suggestions. I'm always suggesting Chateau Talbot, 1975, because it's a vintage wine, and because 1975 wasn't one of the great vintages, it's reasonably priced. It's this fantastic vintage wine that's under $10 a bottle. I'm always recommending it, and I love it because it's a nice vintage wine. And we're talking a matter of degrees in taste. We really are, a matter of degrees. So he took my advice. He took a couple bottles of Chateau Talbot, and he got some other red wines. He got some Beaujolais, of course. Everybody wanted some Beaujolais. He got a couple of white wines, and he got some vodka and some scotch. We completed the order together. And then I'm like, is there anything else I can do for you? He says, well, there is one thing. Could we get this delivered to my address by 4 p.m. today? And I'm like, I've got to check with dispatch, but I can tell you that in a matter of moments. Hold that thought. I'll be right back. So I dart out into the showroom to cut back towards the office. Now, The office is in the back of the shop. It's a great big room, and right in front of the office is a huge wine shelf. So it makes a sort of a little cove. It makes a little cove in front of the office where they have a nice comfy leather sofa and a little table and another little comfy chair, so that when rich people come in, they can go sit down on the fancy sofa and make their wine orders from the comfort of a comfy leather sofa. Right. It's a nice little cove. You sit back there. And you have to, as you round the big wine shelf that hides the cove, you have to walk right towards the fancy sofa before you veer off into the office. Right. And so as I round the wine shelf towards the fancy sofa, I see Mrs. Keith Carradine breastfeeding her baby. Yes. And I met eyes with her because you've got to walk right towards the sofa. And as we met eyes, I did this. And I kept on walking. Now, as I did that, and that resounding slap, that resounding facepalm slap, as I did that, I realized, it probably would have been a little bit better if you had just smiled and kept on walking instead of doing this resounding slap. Treat it just like it is a woman feeding her child. I didn't have the word normalize in my vocabulary yet. Anyhow, I went into the office. I felt like I was interrupting something. I did. I felt like some lowly clerk who had stumbled into Milady as she was tending her royal charges. And so it would have been better just to smile, as I said. I go into the office to talk to Anil. Anil was the dispatcher, and I had to lay out. I said, well, I made this order, and can we get it to such and such by 4 o'clock today? And Anil said, yes, we can probably get it over there by 2 p.m. because we're sending somebody out right away. And I'm like, fantastic. Now I've got to will myself invisible so I can walk out past Milady without arousing her ire by seeing her, by meeting her eyes again. And miraculously, she's already gone. So I just walk back out. I dart around behind the counter, and I come up to my spot where Keith Carradine is waiting, and he's no longer waiting there. They've all already taken off. And I'm like, oh, I wanted to, tell him that the booze is not only going to be there on time, it's going to be there early. And I wanted to shake his hand. Drat! Anyhow, poof, he was gone. I looked around for corroboration. I looked around. It was battle conditions. It was full on at that moment in time. And the staff was all too busy to notice anybody else's customer, let alone deal with just their own. Right. So I look over, and there's my roommate, Rodent. And I say, did you see? And he says, no, what? I said, Keith Carradine. Yes. Came in and ordered a case of mixed white wine and red wine and some liquor. He got some vodka and scotch. And Keith Carradine and I made the order together. And he says, oh, Grasshopper. I said, no. That's one of the other Carradines. This is I'm Easy. He sang I'm Easy in Nashville. And Rodent says, oh, how was he? And I said, hey, he was easy. That she was. But what do you do after that? Right. You go back to the grind. All right. I've been here in New York for over a month now, and I haven't really told you about my roommates yet. So I've got 3 roommates. Here, they're living out in Astoria, Queens, in our little 2-bedroom apartment. And they are Lily, Suzanne, and Rodent. Lily, my cosmic friend, my cosmic roommate, and I were at University of Detroit together. We're all there's a lot of us in New York who are U of D'ers right now. And so Lily and I were in the U of D BFA, Bachelor of Fine Art program together. Yes. And she was a brilliant actor and an amazing singer, you know. Really brilliant, a force of nature on stage. Yes. And she looked a little bit like Anne Bancroft. We always hoped that maybe they'd be able to play mother and daughter together someday. Yes. She was very cosmic, and soon to be, it's not really a plot spoil, but soon to be appearing on Broadway. And eventually, an Antoinette Perry Award winner. Yes, but that's later. Yes, we'll get to that. So, and also whenever Lily would talk on the phone to her parents, she would speak Italian to them. Oh, it was so beautiful to hear that. In her lovely voice, yes. That was Lily, my highly talented cosmic roommate. My other roommate, Suzanne, was also back at U of D with us. She was a director and administrative staff member, but a very brilliant, hardworking, and powerful director. And it is because of Suzanne that I am in New York today in December 1982 at all. We'll get to that presently. Suzanne is actually looks a little bit like Carly Simon, too. Very beautiful with that long hair, that amazing smile, yes. So that's Suzanne. And my other roommate, Rodent. Rodent and I go way back to community theater in Dearborn, Michigan. We were in DCT, Dearborn Civic Theater. And then we were at U of D together. We did a bunch of shows together. And then we were roommates back in Michigan, yes. And we were going to do it. We were going to shake the town up. We knew that we would eventually both wind up in New York, and we knew that we would eventually put together some show that we had written, a musical comedy extravaganza that would bowl over New York, and we were planning on being the next big duo. We were going to be the next Martin and Lewis. Yes. You can see how that worked out. Yeah, Rodent was very talented. He was a singer, dancer, actor, you know, and he looked like a handsome roof rat. Yes, and he went off to New York before I did, and I stayed at home because I was working. I was working in Detroit, and I was convinced that I was going to wait until I got a paying job in New York City before I moved to New York. I didn't want to just move there cold and then have to hunt like everybody else did. I had the feeling that I could somehow get a job and go there, do the job. Well, one night, just a couple months ago now, remember it's December 1982, and just a couple months ago, just in October when I was still living in Ferndale, Michigan, in the legendary Pib Castle, and Suzanne and I were on the phone together. And I'm telling her about my latest project. At the time, I was doing Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. I was playing Rosencrantz. As part of the show, they always got those guys mixed up. Right, anyhow, I'm playing Rosencrantz, and I'm telling her about how hard I'm working and how much fun I'm having and how much I'm learning. And Suzanne just says, what you should really do is just move to New York. And I'm like, I'm not coming to New York until there's a paying job waiting for me. I've said that. Suzanne says, you can't get a paying job in New York when you're in Michigan. I've said that. Well, she was very clever and very patient and very supportive. And we had a long phone conversation, and after 45 minutes of this very serious, very supportive phone conversation, I was convinced that I had to move out to New York right away, as soon as possible. As soon as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead closed, I had to start packing up and get to New York City. She was very clever. She used a person of your talents angle. Yes. So I got stars in my eyes. She said, you'll find work in New York, don't worry. Just as you can find work in Detroit, you'll be able to get it in New York. Get out here. So that was that phone conversation, and I'll tell you, I knew that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead was going to close on the 31st of October. Samhain. Yes. And as soon as I hung up the phone with Suzanne, I started to pack. I'll tell you more about what happened next time. I look so forward to talking with you again.